You're watching Morning at NTV.
Back to Morning at NTV. My name is Idris Matusegawa, and if you have just joined us, we are talking about so many important topics that affect you at home and the country. If you want to join the conversation, go to our social media platforms, that is YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Look out for NTV Uganda or myself, that is Idris Matusegawa, and let's talk about the issues that affect you and give us your thoughts. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has created an unprecedented crisis in education. In 2020, over 1.6 billion children, 90% of the world's school-going girls and boys, saw their education disrupted for months when schools closed. In Uganda, according to the National Child Helpline, 116 cases of violence against children increased during the various lockdowns. For example, from April to September 2020, cases of violence against children increased from 2,400 to 5,000 as reported by the National Child Helpline. Now in studio, I have two very important people to discuss how are we going to get kids, children, students back to school and keep that continuity going after 2 years of literally not seeing the blackboard. Dr. Dennis Mugimba, Spokesperson, Ministry of Education. Good morning, sir.
Morning to you, Sega.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, and morning our viewers.
Well, and Mr. Nsubuga Edson, Head of Education, Save the Children. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to our viewers.
Well, I'll start with you, Mr. Nsubuga. Tell us a little bit about Save the Children. What do you do? What's your mandate?
Well, Save the Children is one of the leading international NGOs, which is child-focused, and it has been in Uganda for the last 100 years, working in different areas, including health and nutrition for children, look in the areas of education, the areas of child rights and the governance, and all areas of the rights concerning children in Uganda.
Okay, and I'll move to the spokesperson,
Yes.
Mr. Dennis Mugimba. Kids, students are going back to school. What are some of the problems that you have already maybe have been reported to the ministry already that the students are facing?
Thank you for that. I think what we are seeing immediately is the high turnout, especially in public schools. We are having overwhelming numbers, especially in primary one. And the reason why we have that primary one large group is that we have new P1, the 6-year-olds who have just joined.
Yeah. And
then you have those who have also sneaked in, but they are not yet 6 years old, as we had guided. Then we are also seeing some migration from the private schools to the public schools. Now, we don't know yet whether it is because the private schools have not yet reopened or are not going to reopen, or because the charges are not affordable in the private schools. Therefore, there is some ease on the public school side. The second one that we are noticing is the compliance with SOPs is not yet good.
Yeah.
We were very clear that we need to have all learners putting on masks. But the schools we visited, we find it is not being strictly observed. And to tell you the truth, COVID is still here. We have done our best to have or to prepare for safe schools, but we need compliance. We need the parents to provide the masks. We need the head teacher to enforce wearing of these masks at the school, so that everyone remains safe. We are also seeing slowdown in vaccination, but we are told that it's because the Ministry of Health had to come in with the national polio campaign, immunization campaign. So literally it is the same human resource that are also handling the COVID-19 vaccination. So there was a bit of a freeze in the exercise. We are also having let me call it pushback.
From the parents?
I think from the stakeholders regarding the bringing back girls who are pregnant into schools. We are pushing this, we are moving into territories that we've not moved in before. We are having to go against culture beliefs, religious beliefs. People are saying they should not come back, but we are saying, look, if we do not provide space for these 650,000 girls, whom we know, by the way, and there's a big number which we do not know. If we do not bring these girls back to school, Mr. Sega, we are having a catastrophe in this country. Because if you look, secondary schools, we have 982,000 females. Primary school, let's go P5, you have about 780,000 girls. That is as per 2019 statistics. So if you don't cater for this 650,000, you are going to have all the gains that government has had in emancipating the girl child erased. You cannot afford to have 650,000 girls out of school forever. That is a big challenge we are facing. But the back and forth we are seeing in the media is good feedback. I think we need to continuously engage the religious organizations, especially. We need to engage with them, not on the rights point of view, but helping them realize that this is not just about rights, it is about not destroying the future of these girls. Then, of course, the issue of school fees. That one, it has really gone to our throats. We are trying to handle it administratively. We are also trying to increase public awareness about our position. But the public and our friends in the private sector and government ownership of these schools should appreciate government is not against school fees. We actually know schools need money to operate. We are only asking for understanding. For these hard economic times we are in, can we not increase school fees? Let us remain at the previous rates before we closed until we have gotten out of this tough situation. And then we can have discussion.
Stabilizing the situation.
Exactly.
And I'll come to you, Mr. Edson Nsubuga. What are some of the observations that Save the Children has made regarding students going back to school?
Well, like Dr. Mugimba has already mentioned, a number of children have already turned up, but we are concerned there are a number of children who are still out there, and that is the gist of this campaign of ensuring that all children from all the corners of the country get the opportunity to go back to school. The challenges which are within schools in terms of population surge, in terms of insufficient materials, those will be addressed. But the first thing first, to ensure that everybody gets to school, and then within school, we begin to try to come up with the different strategies of addressing. Specifically, the most vulnerable groups include one of the categories. Those are the girls who got pregnant and those who gave birth. And of course, from the moral perspective of Uganda, these are seen as spoiled children. But we also have the moral to blame ourselves for not protecting them. Over 600 children got pregnant, and we had the responsibility to protect them. We didn't do our part, and therefore we cannot incarcerate them by excluding them from education, which creates opportunity for everyone. So we appeal to everyone that all children, regardless of their circumstances, can be supported to learn, be it disability. A number of children have various disabilities which are hindering them. A number of children are living under extreme poverty, and there is need for cash intervention support for these children to go back to school. So our appeal is, let us give opportunity to everybody, and then later on we begin grappling with the challenges within schools, within classrooms. There is a huge gap in terms of teachers. Save the Children support public and community schools, and a number of community schools really have a very serious teacher scarcity gap, which needs to be quickly addressed. besides other aspects like classroom space, so need to be flexible on temporary spaces, ensuring that the priority is that learning continues, and then standard and quality can be addressed as we go along.
Yeah. Dr. Mugimba, I'll come back to you. We've talked about, both of you have talked about the pregnant teenagers or pregnant students being allowed to go back into school no matter what has happened to them. What has been the regulation before? Because I don't think this is the first time we are having young girls getting pregnant, although now this is a very huge number. But what has been the regulation before?
Yeah, thank you. There was lack of regulation before, and the practice was if a student became pregnant, they would literally fizzle out of the school system. They would not even be brought back. In fact, having a history of having been pregnant as a student, even another school would literally not admit you. But in 2019, our minister, the First Lady, Janet Museveni, clearly put in place and endorsed guidelines that provide for a learner who conceives when they are still a student to be given leeway, a second chance. At 3 months, let the child take what we call maternity leave. Once you have given birth and you've breastfed your child, the child is maybe 6 months old, you can come back, because breastfeeding for 6 months uninterrupted is the recommended period. So once the child has reached that age, the learner can return to school and join at the level which they exited. But all this was not tolerated before. So it means that even there was stigma in the institution. Now, stigma in the institution of the school, but also the ownership of the school. And that is why you're seeing a lot of pushback from the religious folks, our partners. Now, that is something we have to work around, and it will have to be overcome by engagement. Continuing to enlighten them that giving an opportunity to a girl to return to school, you're not only building a future family, but you're also eradicating poverty. Because once you have empowered the girl child to go as high as they can, you're empowering society to move out of poverty much faster than when you have the male folks. So that is where we want to go. But we have to overcome our previous practices, because the schools are literally the same. The head teachers have not changed. The foundation bodies have not changed. And now you're saying, no, this is a new dispensation of doing things. So we have to deal with mindsets, we have to deal with attitudes, we have to deal with cultural traditions that have been entraced by even religious beliefs. You know, but second, what is very surprising is that the most vocal critics against us letting girls return to school who have been pregnant are men. But we know that a girl cannot be pregnant without the presence of a man. So
of course.
When you look at the critics, 9 out of 10 are men. We are the perpetrators, yet we are the ones passing the harsh judgment. It needs understanding that of these 650,000 girls we are talking about, those that we know, we've not even presented one man in court to say you have defiled these girls. Not at all. But we are quick to say these girls should not return to school. I think there is injustice in that kind of argument. Let us give these young people, we are a very young country, so if we leave out that age group, this cohort, I think the next generations will judge us very harshly. So we have to overcome those negative attitudes towards these girls. Let us not pass very harsh moral judgments, because we, the men, are actually the perpetrators. None of those girls became pregnant without us. Then there is also the issue of the parents. I think the society we are coming from, Segawa, is that we have been so harsh at, you know, the wrong we see, is the wrong we judge. So these girls, when they become pregnant, they even get stigmatized in society.
Yeah.
But now the school or the Ministry of Education does not have a reach in the out-of-school space. Now this is where we want parents. And it is very important that in our back-to-school drive, the parents come up and step to the plate and play their role. You're the first counselor to the girl, to the boy, even because we are talking of girls, but there are also boys who are out of school.
Yeah.
So the parent is very pivotal in this. We can come here and talk as government, we can talk as civil society, but at the end of the day, the actual doer is the parent, the guardian, to encourage this young girl, the young boy, get back to school. Now there will be challenges. There is stigma in the schools. But one of the things that our minister has been saying is that let us allow for girls who have become pregnant to actually move to another school, if it is possible. Because when you go to another school where you're not known, you'll not be so much stigmatized.
Yes.
So those are some of the options we are looking at.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll come back to you, Mr. Nsubuga, Edson.
Yes.
I would like to know, what are some of the practices that are done by other countries internationally? And Dr. Mugimba has talked about allowing the girl child to get back in school, but also as the pregnant student, what are some of the things that need to be done to make sure that I am at school, I'm pregnant, but I'm getting equal treatment, I am getting a comfortable environment to study in, I'm not stigmatized. And of course, pregnancy comes with all challenges that are hormonal, emotional, etc. What can be put in place to actually make sure that this child goes through school the best way she can?
Yeah, thank you. And we realize that societies are really different, and they address matters differently.
Yes.
Before we go to the international best practices, we can look at some of the best practices here in country. First and foremost, we have learned a lot during the COVID era, where schools have been closed, where nearly everyone was learning from home in one way or another. So as a complement to the policy we have for bringing the girls back to school, and aware that after 3 months they're supposed to take leave and come back after 6 months of breastfeeding, that is over a year period while the child is out of school. That period is too long for children to lose interest. So complementary to the policy allowing them back, there should be interventions to keep them learning even when they are out of school, because we have learned that learning can happen beyond the school, the walls of the school, and so that should be a big complement. The second aspect is around the sensitization and awareness building within our society, to know that indeed when a child gives birth, the brain remains normal, the stomach remains normal, everything is normal. So we just need to give them a second chance to ensure that they engage in learning, they engage in education, so that their route, their future can be brightened. So a number of countries accept children who have either given birth or who are pregnant, but there are resources put to support schools to practically implement such a policy. For instance, if a child say gets a little bit sick from school, there should be a place, a safe place where that child can be, so that the life of unborn child and the life of the pregnant child is not at stake. So as we support the schools, as we guide them to have different spaces for different things, that could be one of the considerations. But most of the schools have raised the concern that even without that, they are already challenged with the space within the schools. How can they take care of other aspects, like pregnant girls, like breastfeeding mothers, and all those are things which can be integrated within our system. As Save the Children, we are modeling and piloting some of these approaches in the communities we work with. For instance, supporting young mothers who are breastfeeding with the child care minders who can be where communities are mobilized to organize a space, a safe space, where children can be near the school, and at an interval, they say during break or lunchtime, these mothers can be able to breastfeed their children, get back to school. But all this comes with a whole school awareness raising approach, so that stigma can be minimized, so that head teachers and the governing bodies can appreciate that it's possible.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Edson Nsubuga. And clearly, this is a conversation that needs to be talked about continuously. And we might not have enough time on the show to literally talk about everything that needs to be talked about, but I would like to just get a conclusive word from you, Doctor. What should be done? What's the way forward?
Thank you. One is what you've actually done today.
Yeah.
The media providing an outlet for information to go out to the public. Some people, we believe the way we believe because of the information we have. And some of us are willing to change our attitude if we get the right information. So for us as a ministry, we really appreciate how the media fraternity has worked with us this time since COVID came. So the more we need to continuously sensitize the public with the right information. Let us not shy away from negative feedback. I think all feedback is good feedback because you, the decision maker, you get to know what is going on. Then secondly, let us continuously encourage the parents, because however much government has put all these opportunities in place, it is ultimately the responsibility of the parents and the guardian to motivate, encourage, inspire their child to return to school. That is the bottom line of this whole thing.
Well, if you have just joined us, we are talking about the biggest issue of how do we carry on with a better continuity for students who are getting back to school after 2 years of no education, no blackboard. It's tough. It's tough. We have young ladies who are pregnant, and there's a conversation that is going on that you can be part of. Just go to our social media platforms, that is Facebook, Twitter. Look out for NTV Uganda, or look out for myself, Idris Matusegawa, and tell us your thoughts. It's very important to hear your voice, and that's the way we are going to change the country. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and I hope we shall have you again to continue having this conversation. Right now, we are going to take a short break. We shall be